Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. I believe that we live in a golden age, and I've written a poem to commemorate that fact. I believe we are at the top of a mountain, but I hope that we are at the mid-slope of a hill. I'm going to do a little bit of analysis on this poem afterwards, because this is the handwritten copy of the first copy, and it's hand-corrected to the final version. So I'm going to go through and say here's what I had before and so on. If you appreciate this, it's like a small mini course in poetry, so I'd appreciate contribution to tuition if you would be so kind. I live in a golden age, or just golden age, perhaps be the title. Now, I always begin my poems by figuring out what's the subject and what's the theme. So the subject is modern prosperity and personal freedom, and the theme is, are we at a climax or are we mid-slope? Behind me is the long ascent, in front of me a cloud, up a hill or off a ledge, what lay beyond that shroud? We lounge in comfort day and night with temperature controls. We set it so the room's just right, about 70 or so. How different from a drafty cave or log cabin with dirt floor. How separate we are from every age that's ever come before. History unites in one clear thing, poverty and want. Disease, starvation, misery, death a constant haunt. In ancient Greece, the freest time until the USA, Socrates offended God, and with his life he paid. Places worse than that abound even in this golden age. North Korea, the Saudis, and Iran, people in a cage. But today, as never before on earth, there is a safety zone, and more are clamoring to come and call it home. This fire on a hillside, or is it on a peak? How strong can it keep burning against constant wind and sleet? Alas, this metaphor falls short, for a hiker on a climb chooses not the mountain's shape, as man does all the time. And so the future is in our hands. Shall we upward soar and see a higher view more grand, or shall we fall once more? The pits of hell await us, a very great distance to fall, and so I say we're upward bound. Let's make this mountain tall. Call to action in the last line, as is appropriate. So, the subject and theme I wrote never changed. Modern prosperity and personal freedom was the subject, and are we at a climax or mid-slope was the theme. The first stanza I had written down, let me read it to you. It doesn't rhyme. See if you can recognize where some of the ideas came in. I live in a golden age and stand on lofty heights. The comforts abound in my time. Starvation unknown. That was the first stanza. I reworked that, and none of those lines directly lived on in the later parts. Out to the side, I had a note about that. I said extreme personal freedoms, physical comforts, dash technology. I just wanted to write something about that, and that's what I did in the first stanza. Now, the next stanza. Behind me is the long ascent, in front of me a cloud. I haven't changed that since I first wrote it down. That's how it came out. But then I left the next line blank. Behind me is the long ascent, in front of me a cloud, blank. What is behind that misty shroud? Now, I've changed that to what lay beyond that shroud. And then I went back later, after writing several more stanzas, I came back and filled in that blank line. So, without the blank line. Behind me is the long ascent, in front of me a cloud, what lay beyond that shroud? Behind me is the long ascent, in front of me a cloud, up a hill or off a ledge, what lay beyond that shroud? Up the hill or off a ledge even. Maybe we're not just at a peak, we're going to go down the other side now, but maybe we're going to go over a ledge. The next one, we lounge in comfort day and night with temperature controls. We set it so the room's just right, about 70 or so. That is a very trite stanza. It's cute. It's cute and trite. But I'll let it stay. I can't see what I would change about it. But I was doing one thing to get this stanza to work, out to the side. I couldn't figure out what to rhyme with night. We lounge in comfort day and night with temperature controls. And I came up with, we set it so the room's just right, about 70 or so. Out to the side for night. I had fight, tight, right, sight, might, light, bite. That's the only note I have for that stanza, just those words to rhyme. The next stanza, how different from a drafty cave or log cabin with dirt floor. How separate we are from every age that's ever come before. And I have no notes out to the side. That stanza came out rather well after a bit of thinking over. Next stanza, I begin with all previous history unites in one clear thing, and I struck all previous. History unites in one clear thing, poverty and want, disease, starvation, misery, death, a constant haunt. As I remember right, I didn't finish that one right away. I had to come back later and find something that would rhyme with want, which haunt does. Now, the paragraph about we lounge in comfort day and night with temperature controls is trite. Okay, it's the most trite in this poem, but it is seconded by this stanza. I don't mean to make you prejudiced against these. If you like them, fine, but this is my second to last favorite stanza coming up here. In ancient Greece, the freest time until the USA, Socrates offended God, and with his life he paid. Now it's a learned stanza. It strikes me as trite, mentioning ancient Greece, the USA, and Socrates. It seems very concrete and not like a poet had possibly ought to be, a little more metaphorical, because a poet's got just a limited amount of time to say things. You can't throw a lot of concretes around, and you've got to get what you're trying to say said without losing the reader's attention, so to speak, in poetry. Now, let's see, there's somebody who's left comments and said that Greek poetry doesn't rhyme at all, and they have their heads on totally backwards. We actually know, we can go through Virgil's, the eclogues of Virgil, the eclogues, the Georgics, and we can find, now I know Virgil was a Roman, and we can find the lines that aren't finished. He, when he died, he instructed it to be burned, the manuscript, but the emperor of Rome at the time forbade it and published it anyways, after having some other people finish up the rough edges, but they were not to add anything. They finished up the rough edges and then published it, and then so we have what, like 60 lines or something that they figure he meant to go back and finish, so they don't rhyme. Okay, that's how important it was for them to rhyme. Not just that they rhyme, okay, but that they rhyme line after line after line after line after line after line for page after page after page after page. Virgil rhymed because he was obsessed with Greek poetry, and Greek poetry hangs in the ear like music, says Edith Hamilton. She says it's more, she says, I should get the quote and read it sometime. She says Greek poetry is more more concerned with the musical quality of the sound than English poetry. Sounds strange to say with Lord Tennyson and Byron and whoever else you want to mention. They're obsessed with rhyme, you know. The masters of rhyme of all time, if you please, and yet they're the Greeks. The Greeks, she says, just blow the English out of water as far as concern with rhyme goes. The Greeks were obsessed with it. They had countered measure and answering measure throughout the poem. It's so much to have one line here, but deeply sought meanings interwoven by the sound, says Edith Hamilton. I don't know Greek. Anyways, mentioning ancient Greece, mentioning the USA, mentioning Socrates, a bit trite. That sort of stanza just came out pretty well. The next stanza, I'm going to read to you my original version of it. Places worse than that abound, to this very day. You'll find them all the world round, people in a cage. Day, cage. Not bad, better than a lot of poets have done. But places worse than that abound, to this very day. I struck that. I replaced it with, even in this golden age. Right? Because that's, to this very day means, sure, there's historical progress and here we are today. But it's not just that, it's that we're in a golden age and there are places like that that abound. Not just that it's been a long time and